I am a local hippie, and today we are going to be talking about classics per usual because on this channel, I want to encourage people to read more classics. Okay? Classic literature supremacy over here. I'm just kidding. You can read anything you want. But my goal here is to help people to see how accessible classics really are. They're not just full of wisdom and knowledge, but they're also fun. They're also um, enchanting. They're also charming. And, I want people to see the how valuable these books are. So, in honor of wanting to inspire people to read more classic literature, I have a list of uh, probably 10 or more books that are classics. Um, and they are not long at all. None of these surpass. Okay, now as I was saying, all of these except for one are less than 250 pages. Way less than 300, and the longest book on this list I believe is 370 pages. So, we're going to start with the longest ones and then we're going to get to the smaller ones as we go down the list. So, the first book that we're starting with is Pride and Prejudice by Miss Jane Austen. I read this book last year in 2025, and somehow this is how you know 2025 was a scrappy reading year, to say the least. I totally forgot that I even read Pride and Prejudice in 2025. Like, it's insane. And I didn't even get to put it on my list of like the best books that I read in 2025, which is criminal. That is criminal. That's criminal. Because this was in the top 3 of the books I read last year. This one is the longest one on the list. I think Jane Austen's her penmanship takes a little bit of getting used to, and it might take a little bit of adjustment from what you normally read if you're not someone who reads classics that often. Um but that's nothing that can't be solved with just a little bit of patience and a little bit of desire to read this book. We've got Northanger Abbey. This one I don't even think is 250 pages. um and I read this one so long ago that I don't really remember it that much, but I do remember enjoying it. I know this is supposed to be a gothic tale. Um, yeah, about a young woman whose imagination is just entirely too vivid for her own good. So that is Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. And next, we have, I believe this is the first classic I ever read, and I was intimidated to pick it up, but I remember reading it, cracking the book open for the first time, reading the preface or the prologue, and just being like, yep, yep, this is something I want to read because it was so beautifully written. And that is going to be Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This used to be one of my favorite classics of all time. And in some ways, it still is one of my favorite classics of all time. I just don't enjoy the first half of the book as much as I do the latter half of the book. And that is because the first half follows Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein, and then the second half follows his monster, who I see a lot of myself in, I see a lot of my life in, and I some of the most profound things I have ever read in my life. And profound to me because, like I said, I can relate to the monster so very much. Because ultimately, this story is about a father and a son and what neglect and rejection from your parent can do to you. And not only from your parent, but from the rest of the world as well, how that affects you. And I loved that. So that is Frankenstein. And also, I think a lot of the negative discourse I've seen on this book just come from people mistakenly going into this book and thinking that it is a science fiction. Let me tell you right here and right now, it is not. There are very mild themes of science fiction in here because the very nature of what Victor Frankenstein does to create this monster is science fiction esque if I've ever heard it, but that's not what this book is. This book is about a father and a son. This book is about a man playing God and the consequences of doing that and how they wreak havoc throughout his entire life and drags him into desolation. So that's Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. We've got Notes from Underground by Mr. Fyodor Dostoevsky. I have a video up on my my method of reading Dostoevsky, or in my opinion, the most effective way to read Dostoevsky. And in that method is reading Notes from Underground before you read anything else from the Big Five. I feel like Notes from Underground is the foundation of the Big Five, and it's so small, but it does such a good job of summarizing everything that you will find in the rest of the Big Five. I haven't read the rest of them yet, but I have read three of them: this one, The Idiot, and Crime and Punishment. And I can tell you right now, especially in Crime and Punishment, yeah. Yeah, this is a great companion to reading Crime and Punishment. Crime and Punishment. And I just love Fyodor Dostoevsky. Like, I don't know how many different times and how many different ways I'm going to say it on this channel, but I love that man. Like, I love that man. I love his writing. Like, I knew that I would love him the very first time I read a quote by him, and it's been real, it's been looking real Bonnie and Clyde-ish ever since then. So if you want to get into not only Fyodor Dostoevsky, but if you want to get into classics, and not only classics but Russian classics, pick up Notes from Underground. Please, for the love of God, pick up Notes from Underground before you read anything else in the Big Five. Please, please, please. If your goal is to understand the Big Five, please, for the love of everything right in this world, read Notes from Underground first. Next, we've got No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. And again, this one is less than 200 pages. You could read this one in an afternoon if you really, really wanted to. This book made me feel things. It made me feel things. It made me feel deeply unsettled because I believe we are following somebody in this book that has oh my god, every time I talk about this book I forget what the name of the disorder is called. I don't oh, a sociopath. Okay, I believe we're following a sociopath. I'll put the name of the actual, like, the scientific name for the disorder on the screen. um but and so if you can imagine, if you know what a sociopath is, not to be confused with a psychopath, um this was very disturbing to be in the head of someone who is like that, who is so different from the rest of us in the way that they think and the way that they move through life. And it was so intriguing, and it was so interesting, and I was very almost disturbed reading this, but I also couldn't stop reading it. So that is No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. Next, this one is not a book at all. This one is a play. This is Macbeth by William Shakespeare. I love this play. I have read, I think I've read three, four, maybe even five of Shakespeare's plays, and this is my favorite. This is my favorite. I've read it twice and I probably will read it again. I love it so much. This is about the lengths someone will go to not only become powerful, but be powerful, remain powerful, and how that greed and that lust for power can destroy their life. Kind of in the same vein as what was going on in Frankenstein, that lust for power, that lust for knowledge, that lust for things which don't belong to you. Yeah, yeah. This is less than 200 pages. I believe it's like 180 pages, but you have to keep in mind that the text that you're reading is only on the left side of the book, and the right side is just notes to help you understand it. And this might not be something you want to read if you're trying to get into classic literature because of the language and because it's so far removed from the English that we speak today. But that's what the notes on the um, left side, yeah, that's what the notes on the left side of the book are for, to help you understand what's going on. And then you do have to rely a little bit on context clues. And so, of everything on this list, this would probably be the hardest thing to read. Um, uh, because it's a play, and then also because of the language. But um, I think it's worth the labor. So, this one, Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton. When I tell you I read this in a time where I was going through so much. And this is one of the only times in my life that a book has successfully taken me away from my situation and helped me escape in a way where I forgot that this world that I live in even exists. When I tell you, whenever I stopped reading this and I would lay down and go to sleep, I would dream about scenes. I would dream about the ambience of this place. Like, this book takes place in a very harsh winter in New England somewhere, I believe. And when I tell you it was spring when I wrote this, but it might as well have been winter, that is how vivid. Okay, so sorry about that. My phone died. It didn't die, but I ran out of storage. So I can't yap as much, and the angle has changed. I'm so sorry about that. But I gotta hurry the hell up. So, yes, Ethan Frome, it transported me to another place. It was so beautifully written. It's one of the only books that's ever done that to me. Please read it. Next, we have Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke, and this was so beautifully written. I enjoyed it so much. And if you want a classic that is short and sweet, but also beautiful, compelling, potent, read this. Okay. And last but certainly not least, we have The Pearl by Mr. John Steinbeck. Anything that Mr. Steinbeck has ever written, I want to read. Of everything on this list, this is probably the most accessible. Um, like, this story, and I think it is so relevant to what's going on in our country right now, and the way that people are still being treated as if they don't have any dignity at all. They're not even human beings. This book is so relevant. So if you decide to read anything on this list, please let it be The Pearl by Mr. John Steinbeck. Okay, I don't know how I forgot either of these the two books by this author when I was speaking about, like, books that are relevant to the day and age in which we live. But Animal Farm by George Orwell, and then 1984 by George Orwell. Please, for the love of God. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take back what I said about The Pearl. If you read anything off of this list, please let it be Animal Farm. Please, 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 please. Okay? Animal Farm is the whole reason why I have this channel. Okay? I want people to read more. Okay? So, Animal Farm, please. I cannot promote this book more. And I've never made a video on my channel about this book. You bet your ass that's gonna change. I'm making a video about this soon because this book is so important. So is 1984, but I didn't really, subjectively, I didn't like 1984 that much, but objectively, and especially in relation to the day and age in which we live, yeah, babe, read these books. George Orwell is so important. So important. Okay? Bye now. That is my entire list of books that I think could get you into classic literature, that can ease you in nice and slow before we get into all the big, chunky, blunt object books um, that are so intimidating to like everyone, myself included. So, with that being said, I hope you have a good day. I hope you have a good evening. And most importantly, I hope you read a good book. And I'll see you when I see you. Bye.